I want to take a moment to talk about something really important: mental health. Now, I've had the chance to try therapy a few times in my life, and let me tell you, it's always been a helpful tool when sorting through difficult moments. Therapy gave me the space to work through challenges, and more importantly, it helped me gain tools to deal with whatever life throws my way. That's why I'm excited to share something I think is really awesome. Rula. It's a healthcare company that makes therapy more accessible so you can get the support you need when you need it. Finding the right therapist can feel overwhelming, but with Rula, it's easier than ever. With a network of over 10,000 therapists and psychiatrists nationwide, you can find the perfect match for your needs, preferences, and state requirements, whether you're looking for talk therapy or medication management. Plus, most major insurances are accepted, so you can pay as little as $15 per session. And another thing that sets Rula apart is their end-to-end care. They're with you every step of the way, from matching you with the right professional to scheduling appointments and even tracking your progress. Rula is dedicated to your success, ensuring you get quality care with carefully screened providers and support throughout your journey. So whether you're looking for therapy or medication help, Rula has the range of care you need. It's all about finding the right solution, even if you're not exactly sure what that is. Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey toward improved mental health and overall well-being. Head on over to rula.com/diaries to get started today. After you sign up, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them our show sent you. Go to rula.com/diaries and take the first step towards better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hey everyone, it's Kristen from True Crime Creepers. Every week, I tell my friend and true crime newbie Mogab about a case she's never heard before, but that I've been obsessing over. We talk about all the real-life creeps, from serial killers to con artists. So if you're into dark tales with a touch of humor, tune in wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to the Murder Diaries. I'm Natalie.
And I'm Paige. You know the drill by now. If you want to listen ad-free, head over to patreon.com/themurderdiariespod.
In this episode of the Murder Diaries, we're taking a detour, a slight departure from the usual episode format where we focus on a single victim. Instead, today we're heading out to the edge of the Chihuahuan Desert in New Mexico, where in 1990, an unspeakably brutal massacre took place at a bowling alley, one that involved 7 victims. The desert has always held a certain mystique, captivating and confusing. It imbues an odd combination of beauty and foreboding, disorientation and isolation. There's a kind of uneasiness when you're traveling along its sparse, seemingly endless highways. You don't have to be a true crime junkie or a lover of horror stories to feel it when you're there. The desert has a weird vibe. Cultural folklore is rife with stories and phenomena from the desert. Area 51, spaceships, mirages, dust devils, apparitions seen wandering along roadsides. Iconic rock star Jim Morrison of The Doors was fascinated by the desert's sun-scorched landscapes, saying the desert was the epitome of America. Even poems like Percy Bysshe Shelley's Ozymandias have described the desert as a place of ruin and oblivion. Make no mistake, there are true monsters in the desert. Except they're not mythical specters or demons made from fire and smoke. They take the shape of real malevolent human beings who cruise the highways and byways, driven by a lust for crime and blood and murder, and any opportunity to strike when their victims are most vulnerable and unaware. And it was 2 such men, monsters, who fell upon the desert town of Las Cruces, New Mexico, in the early morning hours of February 10th, 1990, and turned the back office of a bowling alley into a murderous house of horrors. A violent bloodbath, the likes of which Las Cruces had never seen. For the victims who survived the Las Cruces bowling alley massacre, Stephanie Senek, Melissa Repas, and Ida Holgan, and those who died that day, Amy Hauser, Stephen Turan, Paula Holgan, and Valerie Turan. This is their story.
Used to think it's in my head, but I'm walking with the dead.
If you're going to live in the desert, you could pick worse places than South Central New Mexico. Las Cruces is a beautiful desert town at the foot of the Organ Mountains, a proverbial world filled with natural wonder. So says the Las Cruces tourism website. It's a place for outdoor adventure and home to a community proud of the town's rich history. In 1990, one of the popular hangouts in Las Cruces was Las Cruces Bowl, a bowling alley that felt more like a family business. Ron Senek was the owner of Las Cruces Bowl, and his daughter, 34-year-old Stephanie Senek, managed the place. One of her brothers was the bowling alley bartender, and Stephanie even had her 12-year-old daughter, Melissa Repas, running the bowling alley daycare. It was a tight-knit business where seemingly every member of the family pitched in to make it run. And Saturday, February 10th of 1990, was shaping up to be a pretty busy day. At the start of business, around 9 a.m., the Las Cruces Youth Bowling League was scheduled to arrive and participate in their weekly bowling competition. That meant Las Cruces Bowl would be teaming with more than 40 children between the ages of 4 and 12. But it would be a fun kind of chaos, one that the bowling alley workers and patrons looked forward to each week.
This meant that manager Stephanie had to get to Las Cruces Bowl early enough to get everything ready. Stephanie and her daughter, 12-year-old Melissa, and Melissa's friend, 13-year-old Amy, all arrived at the bowling alley around 8 a.m. to make the necessary preparations for the day to begin.
Born on November 7th, 1955, Stephanie Senek was a so-called military brat. This term applies to kids who move from one military base to another with their enlisted family members. And in Stephanie's case, it was her father, Ron, who was stationed and restationed in different cities and towns across the country throughout her childhood. Eventually, the Senek family landed in Wichita, Kansas, where Stephanie graduated from high school in 1974. Her family would eventually move on to Las Cruces, but Stephanie stayed behind after high school, got married, and gave birth to her daughter Melissa in 1978. By 1982, Melissa and her daughter were on their own. Stephanie's father, Ron, had started the bowling alley business down in Las Cruces, and he offered her the job of daytime alley manager if she cared to relocate. Stephanie jumped at the offer, packed up her things, and moved her and her daughter down to New Mexico for a job opportunity and a fresh change of scenery. The manager job stuck, and nearly 8 years later, there she was, on a winter morning in February, looking over the previous night's receipts and preparing the cash deposit for a bank run. As Stephanie attended to her duties back in the office, her daughter Melissa and Melissa's friend Amy headed out to the bowling alley floor to do their own thing. Just two precocious kids wasting time before Las Cruces Bowl opened up and got busy. Sometime between 8 a.m. and 8:20 a.m., one of Stephanie's brothers, Steve, swung by Las Cruces Bowl to pick up his backpack. He'd left it there the night before. But as Steve arrived, he noticed two things out of the ordinary. The first was the presence of two strange men in the parking lot that he immediately saw as he arrived. He would later tell the police that he saw, quote, two Hispanic men walking from the back of the building toward the front. The older man handed the younger man a small case. The older man squats down and looks right at me as I'm driving toward them. I took notice of what they were wearing in their descriptions: hair color, skin, eyes. The other thing that seemed off to Steve were the unlocked front doors of the bowling alley. This was unusual because the doors were supposed to stay closed and locked until opening. Steve went inside, grabbed his bag, but before leaving, he made a point to go to the bowling alley office to remind Stephanie to keep the doors locked prior to opening. Around this time, the Las Cruces Bowl snack bar cook Ida Holgan had arrived to get the kitchen ready for the day. Married with 4 children of her own, Ida was a Las Cruces native who'd overseen the alley snack bar for more than 6 years. She usually worked nights, but she had swapped shifts to work that morning so that she could go play bingo later that night. Bored and hungry, Melissa and her friend Amy found their way to the snack bar to ask Ida if she would mind making them something to eat. But Ida had too much to do before opening to stop and cook for them. So Melissa and Amy retreated to the manager's office to ask Melissa's mom, Stephanie, for some change for the vending machines. Money in hand, the girls made their way out to the main bowling alley floor. But they stopped cold before reaching the bank of vending machines. Standing in the open doors of the main entrance of Las Cruces Bowl stood two men. One older, one younger, both armed with guns. Melissa and Amy were frozen in their tracks.
Not sure what to do, Melissa asked the men if there was anything she could help them with. At that point, the older of the two men instructed Melissa and Amy to go with him to the bowling alley office, while the other younger gunman headed off to the snack bar.
Today's episode is brought to you by Acorns. People often say that the best investor is a dead investor. Morbid or not, here's why. It's because those who have passed can't make rash decisions, and they can't pull their money out in a panic every time they hear about a dip in the stock market. Acorns is built to help you invest for the long term, and, well, you don't need to be dead. Acorns lets you get started with the spare money you've got right now. What's great about it, too, is you don't need a ton of time. You can create your Acorns account and start investing in just 5 minutes. Basically, Acorns does all the hard parts so you can give your money a chance to grow. Sign up now and join over 14 million all-time customers who have already saved and invested over $25 billion with Acorns. Head to acorns.com/diaries or download the Acorns app to get started. Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive deposit to grow Acorns. Tier 1 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/diaries.
My parents did an incredible job of helping me build healthy associations with money. It wasn't just about learning numbers, it was about understanding how balance and intentionality shaped our financial lives. Those early lessons set me up for success and helped me navigate the real world with more confidence when it came to money. And it's a big reason why I'm so excited to share today's sponsor with you, Acorns Early. Acorns Early is a smart money app and a debit card for kids that helps them learn the value of money. Kids can spend what they earn with their very own debit card. They'll love the new sense of independence and getting to choose from 35 plus customizable card designs. Plus, parents can keep track of where and when their kids are spending. You can get real-time spend notifications, set your kids' spending limits, and instantly block lost or stolen cards. They might not realize it now, but starting to invest early is going to have a huge impact on their financial future. And the best part? It's simple. And Acorns Early is such a smart, accessible tool to do that. If you're looking for a way to make a real difference in the financial future of the younger people in your life, Acorns Early is an amazing place to start. Ready to help your kids learn the value of money? Just head to acornsearly.com/diaries. or download the Acorns Early app to get started. Sign up now and your first month is on us. T&Cs apply. Monthly subscription fee starting from $5 per month unless canceled.
Back in the office, the older gunman kept his gun leveled on Stephanie, Melissa, and Amy until the younger gunman appeared with Ida. The gunman then instructed everyone to drop to the floor. As Stephanie, Melissa, Amy, and Ida lay face down, fearing for their lives, the two gunmen managed to get the office safe open, retrieving $5,000 in cash. It was later discovered that the gunman left a substantial amount of money in the safe. It's still unknown as to why. Why did they only steal what they did? Why not take everything? Ida remembers these terrifying moments like it happened yesterday. She said, "I just thought they were going to get money and then take off, especially when they told us, 'All of you, put your heads down.'" But Ida could sense something was wrong. She could tell that the men weren't happy with what they'd found in the safe. They began ransacking the office, looking through cabinets and drawers, as if searching for something else besides the cash. This aggressive, erratic behavior was too much for Stephanie's daughter. Melissa began to scream. Ida said, "I started getting real scared. I thought, these guys are going to kill us." While Stephanie, Ida, and the girls were being terrorized by the gunman in the back office, 3 more people arrived at Las Cruces Bowl. It was 26-year-old bowling alley mechanic Stephen Turan. arriving early for work with 2 little girls, his 2-year-old daughter, Valerie, and his 6-year-old stepdaughter, Paula Holgan, who just so happens to have the same last name as Ida, but there is no relation. A quiet, affable guy, Stephen was born in 1963 in Silver City, New Mexico. The oldest of 5 children, Stephen was a big role model for his siblings, always there to support them and inspire them to do better in life. After graduating from high school in 1981, Stephen joined the National Guard, and within 2 years, he graduated from New Mexico Military Institute. Stephen would eventually rise to the rank of first lieutenant and platoon leader. He was awaiting the rank of captain in the National Guard. It would have only been a matter of time. In 1986, Stephen met and started dating his soon-to-be wife, Audrey Holgan. Audrey already had a daughter, Paula, born Paula Antoinette Holgan in 1983, from a previous relationship. Stephen immediately began treating Paula as his own. She had a bubbly personality. Her mother said she was a girly girl who loved ribbons and bows. Her favorite color was fuchsia. Others described Paula as a light in the world of darkness, the most loving, most playful child, with a laugh that would make anyone laugh along with her. She was an ambitious student who loved creating artwork and playing with her friends. Before long, Stephen and Audrey gave birth to their own daughter, Valerie Rose Tehran, born in May of 1987. She was a gentle child who loved nothing more than hanging out with her big sister, Paula. And Paula loved Valerie equally. Paula was the typical protective big sis, never letting her little sister out of her sight. Audrey described her 2-year-old Valerie as being very much like her father, reserved and shy. The Tehran family was described by others as a close, loving family. In December of 1989, Stephen graduated from New Mexico State University with a BS in criminal justice. He wanted to work for the Border Control or the Las Cruces Police Department. His job at the bowling alley was a temporary stop to make ends meet before realizing a job in law enforcement. In fact, he'd been working out his 2 weeks' notice on February 10th. He only had 3 days left on the job the morning he and his daughters walked into the bowling alley. Normally, Stephen's daughters wouldn't have been with him at work that day. But because Audrey was at her cosmetology class that morning, and there was no time to get a babysitter, the plan was for the girls to tag along with their dad and stay in the bowling alley daycare once the lanes opened up. But all of that changed when Stephen and the girls walked back to the office to check in with Stephanie for the day. When Stephen and his daughters appeared in the doorway, the gunmen turned their guns on them and ordered the 3 of them into the room. Like the others, Stephen, Paula, and Valerie were made to get on the floor and put their heads face down. And then, without warning, the room erupted in gunfire. One by one, all 7 people laying prone on the floor, Stephanie, Melissa, Amy, Ida, Stephen, Paula, and Valerie, were shot in the head execution style. The shooting finally stopped, and for a moment the office was deafeningly quiet. The acrid smell of gun smoke thickened the air. The gunman then set a stack of papers on Stephanie's desk on fire before fleeing the bowling alley. Remarkably, Stephanie's daughter Melissa, who had been shot in the head a total of 3 times, was still alive and conscious. It was 8:30 a.m. by now, and 12-year-old Melissa played dead until she was sure the gunman had left the room, and everything was quiet outside the office.
At that point, with the fire growing steadily on the desk and the bloody carnage all around her, Melissa somehow mustered the courage and energy to crawl over the office desk, find the phone, and call for help.
As the 911 operator answered the call, Melissa was crying, hysterical, pleading for help. She said, "They told us to get down. Please hurry, it hurts. There's a fire too, right on the desk. They're going to burn us up." Melissa even pled for her mother's life, saying, "Please hurry, my mommy." The operator was able to calm Melissa down and get more information from her. When he asked who shot her, Melissa told him it was 2 black males and that she didn't know whether or not they were still there. The 911 operator kept her on the line as police and paramedics were dispatched. At one point, Melissa said that she had a bullet in her head. As the first responders arrived at the bowling alley, the fire in the office was growing rapidly. but firefighters were able to put out the blaze with their hoses and fire extinguishers. Police and medical personnel worked together to remove the victims and get them to a safe place beyond the charred and bloody office. Of the 7 victims, 13-year-old Amy Hauser, 26-year-old Stephen Teron, and 6-year-old Paula Holgan were dead before help could arrive. Stephanie Senek, Melissa Repas, and Ida Holgan were in serious to critical condition and were rushed to the hospital. Stephen's 2-year-old daughter Valerie was also transported to the hospital, but she died in the ambulance on the way. She'd been shot in the center of her forehead at close range. Stephanie's daughter Melissa, the girl who called 911 in those critical minutes after the shooting, was correct when she told the operator she'd been shot 5 times. One shot was a defensive wound to her hand when Melissa held it up to protect herself. The blast nearly severed all of her fingers. She spent 11 days in the hospital. Ida had been shot 3 times, once at close range in her head, and was hospitalized for 6 months. She had to relearn everything at rehab. Within an hour of the shooting, the police began their investigation by setting up 10 roadblocks on all highways leading in and out of Las Cruces, screening everyone in every car that came and went. They also began canvassing the neighborhood around Las Cruces Bowl. They were able to speak to several witnesses who could provide descriptions of the armed men they saw fleeing the area in a tan or green van or utility vehicle. At one of the roadblocks, authorities stopped 4 men who had $12,000 in cash on them. And because Stephanie's brother Steve had seen 2 men in the bowling alley parking lot earlier that morning, he was called to the scene to see if any of the 4 detained men were the 2 he had seen. None of them were a match. The U.S. Customs Service, the Army, and Border Patrol all lent manpower and assistance in the search for the gunmen. Helicopters and planes conducted aerial searches above Las Cruces. But things weren't going so well back at Las Cruces Bowl. The authorities were up against a big obstacle with an unsecured crime scene. Because of the nature of the crime, the fire and smoke and blood, the office at the bowling alley was a scene of complete chaos when first responders arrived. Firefighters put the fire out with water hoses and chemical foam, and police and medical personnel had to care for the victims on site. This meant the office had been compromised, which would make any trace of evidence even harder to find, if found at all. Fred Rubio, who was the Las Cruces police chief at the time, even admitted in an interview the very next day that the crime scene was contaminated from the very start. The captain of the Las Cruces Police Department reached out to the state police for their resources and help. Eventually, police were able to isolate some trace fingerprint evidence and shell casings. But what they came away with was little to no help in their investigation. According to the Las Cruces Sun-News, Las Cruces Police Lieutenant Casey Mullins later said that in the 1990s the police, quote, relied heavily on fingerprint analysis and eyewitness accounts since DNA technology was in its infancy, all of which contributed to making this case difficult to solve. So investigators had to rely heavily on eyewitnesses from that morning, as well as any tips and leads that were called in. And by February 11th, the day after the shooting, police were sifting through around 100 tips.
When you're starting out with something new, like when Natalie and I started the Murder Diaries podcast, it feels so overwhelming and like you have to figure everything out on your own. And there's 1,000,001 new hats that you have to wear and figure out how to be comfortable wearing them. Finding the right tools during those moments is so important. For millions of people who are starting out with new businesses, Shopify is that tool. Shopify is the e-commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. You get to start out with your own design studio, which includes hundreds of templates. So Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand's style. With Shopify, you can also get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you. You can easily create and email social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling and strolling. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping and processing returns and beyond. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/murderdiaries. That's shopify.com/murderdiaries. One tipster said they'd seen two men wandering around looking for the interstate that day. Another person said they saw the younger shooter running west towards the cross streets near the bowling alley, shoving his gun inside his shirt as he ran. This would unfortunately later prove to be a fabricated tip.
Yet another person told someone at a local bar that she'd let the gunman stay with her. Known as Irma to the media, when police interviewed her about the claim, she told them that the men hid out in her home as helicopters circled the sky outside. She said the gunman told her that they'd killed everyone for narcotics and a huge stash of cash that they'd heard had been kept at the bowling alley. Because Irma appeared to be intoxicated or high during her interview, police didn't exactly take her seriously. But she agreed to a polygraph test, and she actually passed. But after Irma got clean, she recanted her statement, saying she lied to impress people in the community and hopefully get free drugs out of the exposure. Irma died of a drug overdose in 2001. Police had two theories about the Las Cruces Bowl robbery and attack. The first being a botched robbery. But that theory arrived with holes already in it. If the massacre was a robbery gone wrong, then why did the gunman leave money behind? If you remember, they only stole around $5,000 in cash. They could have stolen it all, but they didn't. This is a conundrum that still mystifies investigators. Another detail that contradicts the botched robbery theory is that the gunman walked into Las Cruces Bowl not wearing masks. Any thief worth their salt covers their face when committing a crime such as this one. The second theory is one that seems to investigators to be the most likely scenario. The Las Cruces bowling alley massacre was more than likely a planned hit. To the last point of the botched robbery theory, they showed up without masks. This seems to imply that they arrived knowing that they wouldn't be leaving any witnesses behind. They shot and killed children. This was a zero-sum game for the gunman. It was all or nothing. So if it was a hit job, investigators desperately wanted to know why. This is why they began to look hard at Ron Senek. If you remember from earlier in the podcast, Ron Senek was Stephanie Senek's father and the owner of Las Cruces Bowl. Ron was in Tucson, Arizona when the shooting happened. Police asked him if there was someone with a grudge against him that might have been responsible for either planning or carrying out the massacre. But Ron simply said no. He assumed it had been a random armed robbery. After all, this wasn't the first time a crime had occurred at the bowling alley. Ron told investigators that the place had been hit by burglars several times since it opened in 1984. In a 2011 documentary, Anthony Terran, the brother of Stephen Terran, the bowling alley maintenance man who died that day, said that Stephen told him that Ron Senek was living at the bowling alley at the time of the massacre. Ron confirms this in the documentary. Anthony told the filmmakers that prior to his death, Stephen mentioned that weird people had been hanging around the bowling alley visiting Ron. Stephen also told Anthony that Ron seemed to spend his money foolishly. Stephen also said that Ron had lost a lot of money recently. In their investigation of Ron Senek, Ron wasn't cooperative with investigators. He later said that this was because he was angry, that the police even considered him as a suspect. After all, his daughter and granddaughter were both present the morning of the massacre. But there are inconsistencies from Ron in that 2011 documentary. He said that he willingly went down to the police station every day, but the police say that this isn't true. They had to track him down for interviews. In the end, investigators were unable to find any proof that Ron had been involved with the massacre. Again, he'd been out of town when the attack happened. As the victims began to heal in the days and weeks after the attack, the police were finally able to speak to them and get their account of what exactly happened that morning. Everyone seemed to agree that both gunmen were Hispanic males. One was around 30 years of age, with dark wavy hair, light-colored eyes, approximately 5'10" tall, around 170 pounds, with no Spanish accent. As for the other man, he was older, 45 to 50 years of age, with thinning salt and pepper hair, dark complected, and approximately 5'7" tall, around 140 pounds, with a slight Spanish accent.
Snack bar victim Ida told the police that the gunmen seemed to be startled by the number of people they encountered. Ida also said, "When they shot me in the head, it was the loudest noise I ever heard. I thought my head had exploded. I was soaked with blood."
Las Cruces Bowl was reopened for business on February 16, 1990, less than a week after the brutal attack occurred. Ron told the press, "We're determined not to allow this insane act of two individuals to permanently alter the lifestyle of the community." But the rejuvenation wasn't to last long. Ron sold the bowling alley to a man from California in December of 1990. Las Cruces Bowl was reportedly $1.5 million in debt. The police were still on the case by this time, doing everything they could to solve the crimes. They even resorted to contacting hypnotists and psychics to assist in the case and help them create a profile for the killers. They told police that the suspects would be an older and younger man. The older man was the one in charge, either a father or an uncle. The TV show Unsolved Mysteries also got involved. This was exactly the kind of case that could potentially be a ratings booster for the show. The Unsolved Mysteries showrunners and film crew arrived in Las Cruces to capture footage and create a reenactment of the brutal, bloody crime. When the Las Cruces Bowling Alley Massacre episode aired, a flurry of leads jammed their tip line, but none ever panned out. By 1996, Las Cruces police had investigated more than 1,000 suspects, but have since been unable to locate the two gunmen who carried out the grisly slaughter. In the years after the attack, Stephanie didn't do very well mentally and physically. She suffered from extreme bouts of PTSD. She moved away from the Las Cruces area in August of 1994. And then 5 years later, Stephanie succumbed to complications from her injuries from the attack. She passed away on August 13, 1999. As for Stephanie's daughter, Melissa, she was awarded the G.I. Joe Award for Courage for her quick actions in the moments after the massacre. Like her mom, Melissa also moved away from Las Cruces in 1994. She earned a college degree and was married in 2002. She has 2 children. Back in 2011, Melissa was still clinging to hope that the killers would be caught. She said, "Then I'll be able to go out in public and feel safe. I won't constantly look over my shoulder. I won't fear for my children for their safety. And I won't have fear in my own home that the killers are going to try and finish what they tried to do in 1990. Ida Holgan stayed in Las Cruces. She's been unable to work due to panic and anxiety attacks, headaches, and PTSD. Ida's husband, Raymond, said that Ida was a completely different person after the attacks at Las Cruces Bowl. Her brain injuries still keep her from doing normal everyday things. And Ida says that each day is harder than the last. She thought things would get easier over time, but they haven't." In 1994, America's Most Wanted did a segment on their show about the massacre. The episode aired in March of 1995, and police received more than 60 tips, but nothing ever came of the leads they received. In 2003, Las Cruces police updated sketches of the suspects to reflect how they might have aged in the years after the attack. No leads ever came from the updated renderings. In 2015, Detective Amador Martinez told CNN that the Las Cruces Police Department was still receiving tips about the attack. He said, "It's amazing that years later, we still receive tips." Martinez said that they see a spike in tips around the anniversary of the massacre. As they come in, we actively pursue them.
Around March of 2020, the police announced that they were investigating 50 to 60 new tips that came in after police posted a $30,000 reward for information that would lead them to the suspects.
Crime analyst Barry Swanson said he thought the massacre was planned, that it was retribution. Barry's reasoning for that belief was the multiple people who said they saw the two men case the bowling alley prior to the massacre. Supposedly, the men were actually seen in the bowling alley the Friday before the attack, and one of the men tried to come on to Stephanie. Another theory proposes that Stephanie's brother RJ, who worked at the bowling alley bar, was connected to the gunman through his alleged cocaine addiction. Some people still believe RJ was the intended target of the killers. When interviewed by the police, RJ never gave a straight answer. He was aloof and distant, and his answers to questions never revealed more than what was asked by investigators. RJ died in 1997 from an alleged drug overdose. The planned hit theory about the massacre still lives on to this day. According to CNN, additional theories include a botched hit, a drug deal gone bad, and a vendetta against the family. None of these theories have ever been substantiated and proven. As for the Las Cruces police detective Mark Myers, he believes that the murders were the result of a robbery by experienced criminals who wanted to leave no witnesses. Myers said, "It was easy for them to kill. But you couple that with their knowledge of what they were going to gain out of hitting this particular place, and it tells you that this probably wasn't their first crime." Anthony Terran, the brother of slain victim Stephen Terran, told the Las Cruces Sun News, "In this day and age, things like this don't go unsolved. How do we not get these guys? That's the question I ask myself every day. Numerous people saw these gunmen, so someone out there knows something, and they need to come forward." Anyone with information about the Las Cruces bowling alley massacre can call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. That's 1-800-222-8477. Or you can send a text message to 274-637. That's 274-637.
Make sure to follow us on all of our socials and head over to patreon.com/themurderdiariespod to listen ad-free. And until then,
Stay safe.
bye.
The search for truth never ends. Introducing June's Journey, a hidden object mobile game with a captivating story. Connect with friends, explore the Roaring 20s, and enjoy thrilling activities and challenges while supporting environmental causes. After 7 years, the adventure continues with our immersive travels feature. Explore distant cultures and engage in exciting experiences. There's always something new to discover. Are you ready? Download June's Journey now on Android or iOS.